Hello everyone, and massive thank you to hosq for inviting me here and treat me so well whilst I have been here as well. Hello everyone. So I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit for those of you who have no idea who I am, which would be perfectly reasonable, I think. So my name is Lois Macdonald. I've been working in the music industry for over 10 years as a musician, as a performer. A writing artist and recording artist, touring, you name it. I have done that in my band, which is called Pins, if you would like to check that out. That's me riffing hard on stage there in Pins. And that's us in the orange at the top. We've done tons and tons of stuff, but we worked with Belly Union, the label, for a while, and then we've also run our own label for a number of years as well. I am also the vocalist and guitarist in another band called Grave Goods, with my drummer here, who is based over in Ireland, and that is more maybe a post-punk project. A lot more experimental, I would say, in a guitar sense, and also quite existential, which is something I really enjoy getting into lyrically. Studies-wise, I've studied media production, filmmaking, and electronic and computer music, so I sort of started in the arts and then went over into music. I've also been a creative project coordinator, and now I am a lecturer in music and sound design at the School of Digital Arts in Manchester. Also known as SODA. So just to give you a bit of an overview of what to expect today, we are going to just start with understanding AI and my experience of it, how we build this concept of what artificial intelligence is, how we perceive it and how we might interact with it. We're going to look at systems, so the more the technical side of AI, and also storytelling, so looking at these creative ideas and how we personify these systems as well, in order to understand them and understand ourselves. Then we'll look a little bit at how the industry is changing, and I'll introduce a project that I've been working on musically. So, when we say AI, artificial intelligence is just like this umbrella term, covers so many different things, and I think currently there's probably a bit more nuance that is needed in the discussions that we're having around this subject. So just for the purposes of this talk today, I've broken it down into storytelling and technological systems, because I think for me, there is a combination of these things. When we hear AI, when we think of artificial intelligence, we have a combination of these things in our head. Or I do anyway, I don't know about anyone else. So sort of from the storytelling side, I'm looking, like I said, this personification, or the way that we might creatively try to tell stories, we might try to understand being human or existing. So I've got a visual representation of that here from Talos, a machinic defender of mankind, I guess. But yeah, something that is neither God nor human, but somewhere in between, not made from earthly materials. And this idea has been around for such a long time, or this is maybe a way that we've wrestled with our existence since a very long time ago. We have Frankenstein here. So Frankenstein's monster, apologies, created by Dr. Frankenstein, again, sitting between this vision of what is human and what is not, but also repelled from mankind as well. So very unpopular, seen as this monster, uncanny, uncomfortable, and abandoned by his creator, ultimately. The Terminator, I'm sure we're all familiar with. Again, another playing into this idea of storytelling, of the dangers of creating something that is in our image and that can maybe supersede us at some point. And Ex Machina as well, because Ava from Ex Machina, because what a fantastic film. But again, I think this kind of shows where some of the myth-making and the dangers that we may perceive from AI come from. and some of it is to do with the unknown and maybe questions around ourselves and our own humanity as well. Okay, so in terms of the technical side, I wanted to show this slide from a report that was it was just put out at the end of last year, actually. And this is sort of showing how I think we see a lot of stuff about generative AI that is happening now, a lot of developments that have been happening now. But really, particularly in music, these systems have been around for a really long time. And since the invention of the computer, people have been trying to create sounds with it, be creative with it, make music with it. In the very early days, there's sort of Bell Labs who were doing all sorts of things with that, like even using sound in warfare, or trying to come up with codes and things like this, trying to create systems that could speak. Then we sort of get to the 80s where we start to look at more machine learning. We've got structured data sets. So as the technology advances, so does the way that we interact with it. And the creative side of us can't just use it for what it's supposed to be used for. We've got to try and do something more fun with it. Then we get to the 2010s, and we have, again, another development there. We've got IBM, deep learning, and trying to recreate these neural networks that we have in the brain, trying to do that using machinery or computers, and seeing how far we can push that. It was not developed musically, but as artists do their thing, they kind of get the technology, try to misuse it, and try to do something very creative with it. And then now here we are with our generative AI, which just with like the click of a button or a little bit of text can do quite a lot for us. So just for context, I wanted to play a couple of older pieces of music that were created using computers. So this is the Iliac Suite by Hillier. Built on one of the earlier computers. I'll give you a listen to this. Okay, so that was a piece that was designed using systems, but then performed by real humans. But it really was at the beginning of this process of starting to understand music. Well, maybe it's not the beginning of the process, but understanding music as maths, and how we can build melody and use some of those algorithms to try and make something creative. Then sort of skipping forward to the 1980s or the end of the 70s, we've got David Cope here. We have a system he made called Experimentals in Musical Intelligence, EMI. And David at the time was going through a really tough creative period. He had really bad writer's block and was trying to find a way to overcome that. So came up with this idea of investing lots and lots of time in training a system that would work as a collaborator with him. I think these are quite familiar ideas to us now, but I'm sure in the 80s that was quite an unusual endeavor. And he was actually, he started to try and make work in the style of, say, Bach or other classical musicians, which he did fairly successfully, but had quite a big backlash to this music because it was seen as, inhuman, mechanical, no soul, all of this. And he did get quite a lot of hate, I would say, for this sort of music. But he continued to pursue it and made loads of albums. But I'll just give you a quick listen to this. Okay, so you get the idea. It's to me, it's of the same ilk. It's still trying to sort of follow this this pattern, working with classical music and trying to create something that is valued in the same way as classical music from this really long lineage, which I think is incredibly difficult to do. But yeah, so I think there were these people who were trying to break out, who were trying to do something new, but really it hadn't fallen into the mainstream at all. And these were quite like, anyone really working in this way was kind of outliers trying to do their own thing. And maybe the technology wasn't really there for the mass public, general public, to get involved in that way. Obviously, we just sort of have synthesizers being born around the same time. So yeah, having access to the sort of technology that's going to allow you to do that then was harder. So a couple of years ago, this was released just to sort of give an indicator of what kind of systems were now becoming available to everyone, to becoming quite accessible. We've got, I mean, every element really of the creative process here, from ideation all the way through to mixing and mastering. And you can see that there's loads of, this is just like the tip of the iceberg as well. So just, yeah, lots of different companies trying to utilize new technology to make something interesting for us to play with. And then this is from that same report, just from last year, to show kind of where we've got up to with it as well. So we've got the inspiration process, creation and execution, and post-production. But these tools are way more advanced and really can be accessed by anyone, whether you understand music or not, whether you have that ground in a music theory, or you practically play, or you can play by ear. Anybody can use this. So yeah, we have a few different systems here. When we say AI, we have different ways that models can train. We've got the GANs at the top here. So we've got generative adversarial networks. They have a discriminator and a generator. I won't go on too much about this, but we have the generator, which provides an example, and then the discriminator, which tries to understand whether it's fake or not, and learns in that way. We have the variational autoencoder, or VAE, where we have information that's input into a latent space and then decoded on the other side for output. And we have diffusion models, which are like an iterative process, where you would start with your sample and gradually add white noise, and then the system would try and reverse that process as well. So when we say AI, we have these different systems that make up what that is, and that process information in different ways for different purposes. So AI systems are good at things like following parameters, replicating existing styles, processing information quickly, and giving us more of what we want. Some of those sound good, some not so much. And humans are good at creative and critical thinking, so understanding what the parameters are so we can work outside of those. Being innovative, so using the technology or the misuse of that technology. Challenging standard practices or structures, and real world use, so taking this idea and making it real. And I think what's important to consider when we're looking at systems and humans is also what that works within. So we have our own music industry. Humans have a music industry that exists, but we also have our creative needs that exist as well. So this is maybe my opinion, but I think what the industry needs is more productivity, more revenue, and more accuracy. But what we really need as humans is to be able to extend our human expression, to be able to connect with each other, and to increase our income. So I think that AI systems can be good for us, but there's also having an awareness that maybe they're good for other people as well, not just for us. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a couple of tools that I've experimented with that may be of interest if you're thinking of experimenting as well. And something that I think is really important to talk about is accessibility when it comes to AI tools. Sort of as I was mentioning there with like David Cope, some of this technology is not available to everybody, which can be good and bad, but yeah, I'm trying to focus on things that we can all get hold of. So Max MSP, has anyone in here used Max MSP already? Yeah? Yeah. So it's a visual programming software. There's so many things that you can do with this. You can use it for audio, but you can also use like a different library called Jitter for visuals. And basically, I feel like if you can think of it, you can probably make it in Max MSP. And I've got this model up here that was by Samuel Peirce Davis, where he made a Markov chain model. So a Markov chain can help you to predict what's going to come next, and there's different orders of that. But what you could do with this, for example, is put in a MIDI sequence, and this will be able to continue that sequence for you. And you could put in, what have we got up here? Generative by Satie. You could put that in, it will read the MIDI values of the pitch, learn from that, and then be able to either continue that music for you. If you want like a higher level of accuracy, you can ask it to go further back and check more notes. And if you want it to kind of give you a flavor of Satie, but not quite the whole thing, you can ask it to reference a smaller area. But I made this from this tutorial. It was really, really fun. And it's great, you can kind of put your own music in there as well. And start to hear your own music in another way. But personally, ultimately, I didn't enjoy working with MIDI so much when it was coming to these tools, but it was one of the easiest things to get involved with. So just from my own personal experience, I'm a guitarist. I'm not a coder, and when I first got into this, it was really a really steep learning curve. Okay, so this is another tool called Ava, A-I-V-A, and this was around, I think, in 2016, this actually was around. So this was one of the earlier models that you could click generate on. You can kind of choose a style that you want to write music in. You can click generate, you can choose a tempo, you can... there's all sorts you can do in there, but it's fairly limited, but kind of fun to play with. The issue I found with this is that you could generate like 100 songs, and one of them would be interesting. So in terms of, it's like maybe labor saving to compose, but then having to listen through all the garbage that it's created was quite draining. I actually read a paper that it was researching other artists that had tried to experiment with generative tools, and they said they found it draining and it took away their creativity because of the amount of stuff they had to trawl through to find something of use. But what was interesting, I generated a piece that I felt was a little Satie-esque that I felt connected to. So I'll just play a small clip from that. Okay, there's more, but and maybe it was that I'd listened to about 100 tracks that I wasn't that into, but for me, when I heard that one, I thought, oh, I feel like there's actually something I could maybe do with this. And I sort of set about using that as inspiration to rescore for a live performance. And I found it was quite moving to play. It was quite moving for the audience, I hope. But out of all of that trawling and misery, that something of value did come. But I wonder whether I would have got there in the end alone as well. What's interesting about Ava I think is, and what makes it different to some of these tools as well, is there is like an editing window as well. So you generate a track, but you can then also work with the stems. You can export these stems and bring them into your own software and play with them there. But even in here, you can add effects. You can just drag the melody around. You can do whatever you want in there. So this is quite innovative at the time. But in terms of accessibility, and I think a lot of systems follow this format now. But yeah, in terms of accessibility, we have the bronze standard. Free forever, it costs nothing, but it has all these limitations here. So we've got copyright owned by Ava. No monetization. Credit must be given to Ava. You can only have 3 downloads a month. You've got a limit on the duration and a limit on the quality in which you can download. If you are rich, you can have the Pro Monthly or the Gold package, which means you own it. You can use full monetization. No credit, you don't need to mention Ava at all. 300 downloads a month. That's very productive. Longer tracks. You can add influences in, so you can upload tracks. You can export WAVs, all of that. So, yeah, I think this is problematic, because there is absolutely no difference here apart from how much money you have. So if you can afford 600 euros a year, you can just say you own this work. You can do what you like with it. They don't care. They're happy with the £600. If you don't, it's tough. And a lot of these systems work on this now. A lot of these systems work on this sort of package deal. It should be the same for everyone, so I'd say you pay or you don't. But hey, who am I? No, you can generate as many as you want. But if you want to download it or you want to export the stems to work with it again. I think, just going back to that, I think if you're, this is what you do professionally. And this is, at the time when I was kind of doing this earlier research, I did interview quite a lot of musicians about it. And the ones that were maybe working more for media or in the sync world said they thought this was a really reasonable price to pay, actually, to have a tool that would help you make work quickly, because your turnaround times are much shorter. But the people who were maybe more in bands, or they had a main job and then their music was a passion, said that this was disgusting. So yeah, it's interesting how it kind of split opinion based on what your main income is and how much of it you have. Okay, so I wanted to include this because ChatGPT changed everything for everyone. At the end of 22, when this came out, it was significant because you can do whatever you want. It will help you now, but it was significant because it was so accessible and it really shifted people's perception of artificial intelligence and the use of artificial intelligence in creativity and in your daily life as well. So, although it doesn't generate music for you, you can just ask it to write you music. So, for example, here, could you write me a chord progression in the style of Tame Impala? Yep, there you go. This is the short answer. There was a full explanation behind this. The bridge, the chorus, alternatives. Do you want me to do another version of that for you? So I think personally I probably have two sides of the coin to this one. For me, I do think music should be accessible to everybody, and I do think that systems like this allow that process to happen. But then, as a musician as well, I can see the issue that if you spent 10 years learning a craft, a skill that you care about very much, and someone else spends 10 minutes making a really great tune using ChatGPT, it can be upsetting. So I don't know. I think as well, anyway, I'll get to that later. But yeah, there's the two sides of the coin for me. I think it should be accessible to everyone, but that doesn't help the musicians out there. Next up, we've got stable audio. Has anyone experimented with this? So, so stable audio. This is a bit like Stable Diffusion. Well, it's from the same company. If you've seen any of those early videos where there was sort of images that constantly transforming through each other, that's Stable Diffusion. It's much better now. But this is the audio version of that. So this is one of the earlier text to audio systems. You can type a description in there, and it will do its best to replicate that for you. This was made by some independent coders. And what's really good about this system is it is only trained on music that it's allowed to be trained on. So anything that's got a Creative Commons license, basically. So this isn't data that's been scraped from the internet, which means you do get varied results. And I'm trying to do this in timeline order, so I'm going to show you the examples of when this was released. But I will say as well, it has improved again. But this one is, so this is Woman Sitting on a Hill. I don't know, maybe that's her footsteps or the wind or the grass, I'm not sure. And then this was me as an artist trying to give it something confusing to generate, by the way, if you're wondering why I didn't just put techno track. And then this next one is a human singing. Does anyone in here sound like that when they sing? No, I think the human voice is one of the hardest things to replicate, especially with a limited data set and something our ears are very sensitive to as well. So we can hear that uncanny valley from a mile off. I did try it again with the newer model, and it's much better than that. Still a little uncomfortable, but yeah, it has improved as it's gone on. But this can be really fun if you're doing things like sound design, or you just want some little clips. Maybe you want to create sounds to work with the samples in Ableton. This can be a really fun way of doing that, and way more ethical than other methods as well. Okay, so Suno and Udio. Anyone use these in here? Yeah? They really do it all for you, don't they? How have your experiences been with it? Bad, okay, yeah. Yeah, so this is an interesting one, because this will really, if you haven't used it in here or you've not heard the results of it, it is very, very good at creating a full track. You can't edit it afterwards, so you really sort of get out of it. You just get the track out of it. And I will talk about this a bit more later on as well. But I put some of my own lyrics into this from my post-punk band and asked it to make me a post-punk song, thinking it's never, ever going to do it. I'll play you the results. So all the vocal is produced by this system as well. I wish I had written this song. So I just gave it the lyrics. I didn't really give it anything else. I just wondered what it would think of my lyrics. So even though I'd been playing with this quite a bit, I was shocked. I thought I would listen to this. Like, I would buy the music from this, and briefly considered trying to do a cover version, and then thought, no, it's just not worth the time. But yeah, I think if you're someone who's not had the privilege really to have a music education, or it's not been something that's been in your life for whatever reason, I can see why this would be an exciting thing to you, that you think, oh, actually, I can describe what I want to make, and I can filter it and do it that way. Yeah. And finally, just on the software side of things. So does anyone here use Logic? No. OK, so one of the main things I learned in was Logic, and then went to Ableton later. But yeah, Logic 10 has recently, like within the past year, introduced session players, AI session players. So you can, as I'm just sort of doing here, you can put in your chord sequence, you set what that chord sequence is, and then you can add a keyboard player, a bassist, and a drummer, and start to manipulate how it is that they play, the style they play, and yeah, what instruments are included in their kits or their amp or whatever. Again, this is, I think Logic is mostly used by acoustic musicians to record in the studio. So this is quite a big step, I think, for them. They've had sort of the idea of session players before, but this is a new one that can kind of read and stay up to date with what it is that you're doing. But yeah, there it is, just making a whole track in about 3 minutes. We can make it, yeah, more harder or more simple. Take out the cymbals. I'll just play you a clip. This took me 1.5 minutes to make, this song. I mean, you can tell. But you know, like this and Suno, there's an awareness of form and what it takes to sort of make a song interesting. So that is poor, but I really did it very, very in the duration of the previous video. So I think, you know, for some people and those people who are younger, who are just learning these systems, this is going to become quite like second nature to them to use these options. But again, I think I spoke to a few people about this, but you know, people hated the drum machine when that came out, and really this feels like just an extension of that technology to me, whether it's what I'm used to or not. Okay, so I'm going to just do a couple of examples of hardware that is really fun to use. So there's a system that came out called Wekinator by Rebecca Febrink. This is a couple of years ago, but it was a really good system that basically connects it would connect like your DAW to a physical, like a gestural system. What I found really good about this is it taught me loads and loads about probability types and how to get the best results from a system that you want to design, and yeah, decision trees and things like that, which, although I did do maths at school, I'd completely forgotten about. But basically what you can do with it is you could use the camera on your laptop and teach it that when you do this, you play a C, when you do this, you play a D, and then you can stand in front of it and perform live, and it will generate music as you go. So this is a very short clip of someone called Hong Shuo Fan, who's based in Manchester, who is using a Leap Motion tracker. It's just like a small tracker that tracks your hand motion to compose using gestural shapes. So it's also based on the Chinese language, as you can see here. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting project. I can't play the whole video for you today, but you should, yeah, check him out. He's done lots of interesting stuff with hardware systems, just as it's building. Okay, so also we have a musician, Imogen Heap, who made these Mimu gloves. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they basically are full of sensors and they connect to Ableton, and it means you can like design music or compose music with movement. So I'm gonna play a short video of her describing these, and yeah, she's even more English than me, so. That's her studio. How cute is that?
Hello, welcome to my house. Please come in. I'll take you down to the studio. I'm Imogen Heap and I'm a musician. More recently, I've been developing these beautiful gloves that help me gesturally interact with my computer so that I can make music on the move, in the flow, and more humanly, more naturally engage with my computer software and technology. So here they are. This is the latest one. This is an earlier one, and these are many other iterations. What this glove enables me to do is access mappings inside my computer so that I don't have to go to a keyboard or a fader or a button. I can use, say, a fader instead of doing this, which is not very expressive or exciting for me or the audience. I can do this. So I'm moving around the scale by going up and down. Down there, it goes down a fifth, or down a fourth. And then I can change the filter like that. And I can go between different sounds by going up and down using the pitch. This is what we call pitch. This is what we call yaw. This is what we call roll. And here, filtering the sound and kind of pitch bending it. And then stopping the arpeggiator and starting it again. So these gloves have traditional bend sensors inside, and this measures this kind of movement. So this may be 0, and this may be 127. And we're also using these fourchettes in here to get that kind of that action as well. And when my
but yeah, so you get the idea that this like gestural interface that. Again, it could be about accessibility and like the way that people, some people are not able to just sit and use these DAWs, but they could maybe physically start to write music using these. They're quite expensive. They're $2,500 for 2. I don't know if you get a discount for 1. But yeah, so there's just a few examples there of like, I mean, there's tons, there's more, but just for today, there's like these. People are trying to be creative and use this technology in a different way. And again, the machine learning part of that is training what the gestures are so it recognizes them. Okay, so I'm going to just talk a little bit now about more about storytelling, and my own interest was in the human voice, and AI really is how I sort of went down this path. How we personify machines, computers, how we the image that we put them in, and also for me the voice. I wouldn't say I'm like a particularly strong singer, but it's like very personal. To me, it's the most personal instrument. It can be very, very powerful, and yeah, it's unique. It's from your body. It's designed by nature. So I just felt like that was like a really strong contrast to working with AI. So yeah, just to track the sort of history of like voice models, the recent history. Starting off with Lil Miquela. I don't know if anyone is already familiar with her. She's very, very famous, but not real. So she's an online influencer who sells products and will be perpetually young and beautiful. This is her being cool and chilling out. But in 2017, her team released tried to kickstart a music career. And yeah, I'll play you a little snippet of that.
You just wanna waste my time. Can't let you get away on my time. I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm fine, I'm fine. You know I need you.
Okay, we get it. But yeah, so I think this is really one of the earlier examples of like a fictional person or a fictional machine-created avatar trying to have a music career, and a lot of this was the track was generated using AI. From what I understand, it was sang, but the lyrics were generated, and I think they sort of really play on this idea. And part of her personality is that they play on whether she's real or not, which we know she isn't. So they are definitely playing with us, but. Yeah, there's this like not mine. Who does she belong to? And the sort of the auto-tune style of the vocal, I think, is playing into this idea of her as a machine as well. So, moving on to Yona. Yona is this character here, and this is her gang of. I don't know, pop stars, I guess. So they're called the Oxhumans, which this really is leading into this sort of cyborg AI is coming to get you style of imagery, I think. The uncanny. But yeah, this is an artist called Ash Kusha, who is a sound designer, a musician, but also I think does like game development and all sorts of really exciting technical things as well. But yeah, so this is still up. I think the idea was we'll kick launch Yona and then we'll go through all the other ones. But I don't think it got that far. So I'll just play you a track from Yona.
Never felt this warm. I sense in every motion rapid changes in motion. Oblivious, I took charge. Oblivious, I took charge. Steps up the hill, echoing the rest, flowing in my heart.
Okay, so yeah, really playing into this. It's like very electronic, very sound design. I think he made the music, and then he would train this model on certain texts that he thinks someone like Yona would read and try to generate authentic lyrics from that, basically, which is really problematic, and I imagine is the exact reason that this didn't happen. But yeah, I think what is really interesting about this is when this was around 2018, and it was when the AI debate was really kicking off, and I think that he's really lent into that idea, this like the storytelling, the myth of AI, into make something like fairly terrifying. But yeah, okay. Then next up, so a lot of this is working with pretty basic systems, so like language models or MIDI. And then we've got Dada bots who exploded on the scene. This is one of the creators of Dada bots is who designed stable audio in the long run. So they are these two hackers up here, and I think they like music and maybe they play a bit, but they started to generate music using raw audio files. So instead of MIDI and using like the numbers and the maths and the structure, they were using audio files, training models on that, and then generating new music. So they were kind of like, you know, the punks of AI music. And they made this like profile image of themselves with the guitars hung up on the wall just to sort of irritate people, that they like just fall asleep and let the computer do the work. But they came up with one of the earliest things they did is this relentless doppelganger, which is still streaming now, and it's just constantly producing death metal music. And it's still going. So we'll just listen to a bit of that now. Just keeps going. But apparently the reason they chose that is because the sound quality was very low at the time, so there was a lot of noise in there, and they felt that it kind of suited the style. And they were kind of doing it for fun. They did it at a hackathon, and it really spiraled from there. They did loads of other projects. They did like a NoFX album that was just, I don't know if anyone has listened to NoFX, but the songs do have a bit of a formula, and they were able to just keep generating that. They've done loads of stuff. Okay, so Holly Herndon, moving on. So Holly Herndon is, she's an American artist based in Berlin with her partner, Matt Dryhurst, and they work together. She has made a voice model of her own voice called Holly Plus. She's done loads and loads of work in this area. Her and Matt done loads of work on intellectual property and copyright around the creative arts and AI. Definitely check them out if you get a chance. But yeah, so in I think 2019, she released this voice model that anyone could go onto this browser, put in a sample, put it through her voice model, and then do whatever they want with it. And it was kind of looking at, who owns a voice. So if I made a model of my voice, share it with everyone, is it everyone's property or does it remain my property? And I think these were some of the questions knocking around at the time. So just to give you an example of what this sounded like. This is an original, sorry, not her.
And then it was dawning. Couldn't keep myself from falling.
And then this is the model version. So it doesn't sound exactly like Holly Herndon, who has a lovely voice. But I think, I feel anyway that was a deliberate decision because it would be kind of crazy to make a model of your voice and give it to people. But we will come to that later, to play with. But I think the idea is there. And what's really, really good about this is it just, again, it's about like AI literacy, like letting people access this stuff without just hitting a brick wall of Python that you can't penetrate. It just gives you some understanding of what's going on. There's a whole document that was released with this that explained how it works, why it'd been made, why it had been released, and those conversations are so important when it comes to new technology like this. She's done a whole album that uses this model. She's just had an exhibition in London where you can interact with a much clearer version of this model. So she really is, her and Matt really are like lead figures in this field. If you don't know them, do check them out. Then ChatGPT came out. So just in these like timelines, I'm trying to include this moment, not the singularity, but the moment that things really changed. Then ChatGPT came out. Okay, and then in April 2023, we had this track that went viral as a leak of a track by Drake and The Weeknd.
I came in with my ex like Selena, the flex, bumping Justin Bieber, the fever and left, she know what she need, or she blessed, giving me my best, yeah, I got my heart on my sleeve.
Has anyone heard that track here? Okay, it went like insanely viral because somebody, well, the writer, ghostwriter, said it's a leak of this track. Anyway, a few days later, it was turned out to not be. Someone had used a voice model and sort of sang it themselves, processed it, and done this, which was like a revelation at the time. I know we see it now all the time, but in, when was it, 2023, it was one of the first of its kind. So, in steps Grimes, 2 weeks later, who is kind of always been interested in this idea of technology and creativity. and puts this up on the then Twitter. I'll split 50% of my she got her team to make a voice model of her and made a whole website, threw it up online within 2 weeks, which is incredible, I think. But yeah, I'll split 50% royalties on any successfully AI-generated song that uses my voice. Same deal as I would with any artist I collaborate with. Feel free to use my voice without penalty. I have no label and no legal bindings. So she put this up, and then a few days later, she did have to introduce some rules to how you might use this voice model, because people were misusing it, standard, as you'd expect, for like hate speech and things like that. But she did get people using this, and I think, although it can be controversial, I think this is a really great way of having an additional income. So she's got her own project, she does that, and then other people go off and they make their songs, they use her voice, and if it does really well, she gets 50% of the money for doing nothing. Basically, I think it's really interesting in terms of like authenticity and how the audience would perceive that. People who feel very connected to her as an artist, would they feel that same connection to another piece of work that just has her voice on it or the voice model on it? But yeah, just to give you a bit of an idea of how that sounds.
I was somebody
original.
else, and then it was dawning. Couldn't keep myself from falling.
And then the Grimes is called Elf Tech, her model.
I was somebody else, and then it was dawning. Couldn't keep myself from falling.
If you haven't heard her speak, it's quite accurate, and it was a really interesting tool. It's still up if you want to play with it, but I kind of experimented with this in terms of you drop samples in, or you can just record straight in, and it will transfer that for you. But like just recording unusual sounds and having Grimes vocalize those, and you get some really unusual stuff, which was fun to play with. Nothing successful enough to have to give a 50% though, sadly. Okay, so this is one of the tracks that was made using her voice model, but not her. This is Keto, Cold Touch.
Fool me like I'm yours forever. You could be the one that made me cry. Lay me up inside. I'm sleeping in your worn sweater. I'm just trying to let her read the signs. Won't you tell me why? Oh, why? Blue blood, cold touch, you could let me all night. I should switch up, talking to the wall. I'm you whatever.
Sorry, just before the drop there, but yeah, so you can see you can see her fans actually probably really enjoying that. And she set up a second artist that's just called Grimes AI, and it has the tracks that she sort of selected as being authentic or that she thinks are cool, and they sit on there, and it appears that a lot of people are streaming them. I don't know if they're real streams, how do we tell? But it appears that they're quite popular. And yes, someone is listening to them somewhere, so... yeah, but this, when I was like looking at this, it kind of made me consider that you start to consider not just you as a creator, but also your audience. And, you know, they're kind of, personally, as like a live artist, they are an essential part of what I do. Like, I would not be able to do it without people who want to listen to the music I make, and the way that they connect with it. So I did start to find that really interesting. There was... I don't know, Oasis are huge from Manchester, I don't know if you know them, but there was an AI sis, so basically, Oasis haven't released any new music because they fell out, and they have such a huge fan base who wanted new music, and some of them, who were already a band, decided to just make the album. So they wrote the album on guitars and drums, and they recorded all of that in a studio. And then they wrote the lyrics, and the singer sang them, and they used a voice model to be Liam Gallagher, basically. And they got to do like a tour out of that. So many people were listening to it because the fans were like, this is the album we've always wanted and we never thought we were going to get. We have Liam here. His own feedback. He thought it sounded fantastic. He was really happy with it. So it sort of shows that there is maybe a market for it, which again I found really strange but very interesting, that actually people connect with these artists in different ways and they just love music, which is great. And final example is this track. It's like a new Beatles track that was released from a demo that John Lennon had recorded on the piano. And they use like a stem extraction AI tool to separate it all out. And then Paul went in the studio and sort of finished it off and wrote those other parts. So I'll just give you a quick little teaser of this.
It's all because of you. And if I make it through, it's all because of you.
Okay, so again, it was very positive use of AI, creative use, and again, another significant moment due to the scale of the band and the scale of their audience in changing public perception of these tools. And people were just happy to have the song. They weren't really too bothered how we'd got there. So this all got me sort of thinking about the currency of the voice as an artist and the value of the original, or my voice, as you can hear me now, and then this imitation. So if you are a graphic designer, you might be aware of some arguments around the original piece of artwork or a painting, and then these mechanical reproductions of it, the poster, the printer, the printing press made all of that possible. Another piece of new technology that some people really tried to destroy. So for me, all of these arguments are really connected, and I became very interested in what the differing value, or if we still see that in the same way, of these different versions are. So we have like the original voice, the original singer. We've got an imitation, so a copy that has been endorsed by the artist. So Grimes saying, "That's sick, I wish I'd written that," even though she didn't. And then we have like an imitation that's not been verified by the artist. So an imitation that kind of just like the Drake one, which actually they just tried to get banned and keep pulling it down all the time. It doesn't have that same sort of value. I think people still listen to it because they like the track, but it doesn't have the same value in the way as if they'd said, like Liam did, "That sounds great. I think it's fantastic." There's a lot of academic context to this argument as well. So looking at the aura of the original artwork, how it exists in that one thing and only in that one thing, and the more technology that becomes introduced into that situation between the artwork and its audience, the more diluted that becomes. We've also got from Lowe and Latour is that copies can be good and bad, and that can affect how an artwork is perceived. So a good imitation can also add to the aura and add to the story of an artwork, but a bad imitation can take away from it as well. And we've also got here from Gamble is talking about that like transformative role that the audience can play, and co-creation, which is kind of where these tools seem to be going, is the artist as creator as well as an audience. Sorry, the audience as creator, not just the audience. So I made a voice model of my voice using kits.ai. So it was really simple, and I needed like 30 minutes of my voice to make this. And I think they're even better than this now. You can use even less, but just to give you an idea of what that sounded like, having listened to me speak for an hour.
I was somebody else, And then it was dawning. Couldn't keep myself from falling. I was somebody else. And then it was dawning. Couldn't keep myself from falling.
So really accurate, really accessible, very easy to use, great instructions. I don't know why I would need a model of my own voice, apart from that it sounds slightly better. So I could get a really fantastic singer to sing melodies that I can't, throw it through the model, and then it would sound like I did it. And so there's actually quite a few of these sort of tools out there. I just used Kits AI because it was the easiest one, and at the time was free, but it still runs on that, the tiering system. So the more you make, the more you've got to pay. And yeah, I just wanted to mention Rave, which is by Urcam in Paris, which is a really interesting tool. It's been around for a while, but I think even maybe just 6 months ago or last year, they updated it and made it into VST, and you can just use it with Ableton, and it's way easier to use than it used to be. They've got models of different instruments, or this one is a speech one, that you can download and use, or you can generate your own model, put it into this interface, and use it in Ableton. So it's still, if you've not done any kind of coding, there's still some hurdles to overcome, but very accessible compared to some others that are out there. Okay. So just a couple of points on industry, which I won't spend too much time on, because I think I've spoke a little bit about that as we were going through. But yeah, basically, when Suno was released, which I think was 2024, the end of 2023, it turns out that they'd just been scraping the internet using whatever they could get their hands on to train their models. So there's a reason they were so successful, because they had so much material to work with. But the world's biggest music labels decided to sue them. So Ultimate, Universal Music Group, Sony, for example, decided to sue these companies, and they wanted compensation of $150,000 per track that they'd used to train, which would add up to a lot of money that I'm not sure if Suno would have. But I don't know, I don't think that's been resolved yet. I think it's actually ongoing because it's such a huge, this was at a time, it was like the Wild West of AI and copyright law. So it's still ongoing, and there is an argument that if something's in the public realm, it's open for use. It depends where you live. In the States, it's a bit more open. But just after that, maybe a few months after that, Universal actually announced that they were going to start making their own voice models to work with their artists, which was quite an interesting development after they'd been so angry about the way that Suno had gone about it. So they started off working with Sound Labs to make this mic drop app. And this is a couple of quotes that were there at the time when they were doing this. So from Sound Labs, the head of Sound Labs, artificial intelligence, when used ethically and trained consensually, bit of a dig there, I think, at Suno, has the Promethean ability to unlock unimaginable new creative insights. We are designing tools not to replace human artists, but to amplify human creativity. I'm not a cynical person, but I feel cynical when I read this quote because of the way that these very big labels own the musicians that they work with. And I felt concerned that this was another income stream for the label, perhaps, rather than the artist. Chris from Universal. BT understands how performers view and value their voices. And Sound Labs will allow Universal artists to push creative boundaries using voice-to-voice AI to sing in languages they don't speak, perform duets with their younger selves, restore imperfect vocal recordings, and more. Is this the world we want as artists? That someone says, hey, you were better 20 years ago. So we're going to get someone who's 20 years younger than you to sing it and then use your voice model. So it sounds better, right? It's strange, actually. And I think it kind of, although I think they're desperately trying to sound like that they're in touch and that they want to protect the artists, what comes across here to me is that they're trying to protect their profits, and that actually what they're going to value is younger artists and not the human experience, basically, is the stuff that sells and the stuff that they want to hold on to. So mysteriously, though, they stopped working with Sound Labs. I'm not sure what happened there, but they started working with this company called Clay instead to make this voice model to help their musicians. But again, I haven't heard, this was 2024, so it's only last year, but I've not heard any updates like, where is this model? Are they already using it? I don't know, to sell the same music across continents. So recently, there was a book that came out called Mood Machine. Has anyone seen or heard of this? It's by an American writer called Liz Pelly, and she is looking at the rise of Spotify and the costs of the perfect playlist. And you may have heard there's a lot of AI-generated music that has been filtered into Spotify, a lot, and that there is whole playlists created using this music, of which Spotify own, or companies like Universal Music Group own. So that's a real, that is a real clear case of music being funneled away from musicians and straight from the company back into the company. And she does suggest some solutions in here for consumers, potentially, to like make sure they value the artists that they want to listen to, and they support them in ways that they can. But the whole book is really, it just feels really current, really like she's been doing this research for years, and just sort of tells you the whole story. It's really, really worth a read. And in the UK recently, we had this album came out. Over 1,000 British artists submitted a track to this album that they released, Is This What We Want? And this is because the British government were about to sign over anything in the public realm to allow AI companies to train it, basically. And this was a protest album about that. There's some very high profile people on this. Kate Bush, for example. But yeah, the content, I'm afraid, though, is recording silent recording studios. So it's just silence in recording studios around the country. But it was there. There is a whole website for this. If you want to read a bit more about what they were, I mean, I think we understand, but if you want to see more about what they were doing, there's a website for this as well. There's also this website called spawning.ai, and this was made by Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst. This is, I'm sure, a result of all the research they've been doing, but this is basically, you can, if you see the drop down here, you can look, have I been trained? Has my work been used to be trained on a model? You can check. And you can also opt out as well on here. So, yeah, again, AI literacy and helping artists understand how their work is being used or misused. And they're not the only people trying to help with this situation. ERCAM, again, that I've already mentioned in Paris, they've come up with something called Amplify, which allows you to almost like watermark AI tracks. So again, from the report I was showing you earlier, this is just a sort of timeline of these systems that have been used and how many of them are and how they've really like spread like wildfire over the past, I think it's like getting to 10 years now. And then also looking at how generative AI might affect streaming income up until 2028. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So this is just from streamed music specifically. We've got, just in case it's too small, it looks like here this red section, 18%. Gen AI music in streaming that's replacing human music. And then there's a 3% boost of extra AI income. But the profit as a whole is also going up. I thought it'd be scarier than that. It's not great, but I thought it'd be scarier than that. But these are just predictions, so time will tell. One of the major factors in that is that these apps like Suno have plans to sort of become not just like a tool or a toy, but to be a bit of everything. So you create on there and you listen on there as well. You can have different personas on there. So you can create different versions, different artists and different versions of the work you want to make. But they're also building communities in there, to try and get that bigger and more successful and kind of a one-stop shop. We'll see, will it work? Okay. So I'm going to just talk finally about a project that I did called Patience. So I started this a while ago when I was playing guitar, and I got distracted by this painting here. Has anyone seen this? Yeah? So Portrait of Edmund Bellamy. This is the first AI-generated image to sell at an auction house. So it was created by artist collective called Anonymous, and I think it was estimated to sell for about £15,000, but it sold for like £450,000, something like that. And it kind of shook the art world. But I remember reading an article about this, sat playing my guitar one day, and I saw this article and I thought, wow, if that is what's happening in the art world, how long will it be before we're kind of seeing some of the repercussions of that in the music industry as well, which I was quite enjoying at the time. So I started to do like some initial research into this, and this is where my interest started. But as someone who is an instrumentalist and a singer, I had an interest in like techie stuff, but I hadn't really done it before. And I found it really overwhelming and a really steep learning curve. So I decided to call my project Patience and celebrate all these like small wins that I felt had achieved along the way. So I was setting like small targets, learn one thing, do a show with it, or share that with people and see what response you get. I wrote a manifesto to be like, this is a project dedicated to all the hours that I'm losing to the process because it was taking me such a long time to do anything. And I was asking, how could I integrate these tools, which were, so this is pre-Suno and just before ChatGPT came out, actually, I began this. How can I use those authentically in my work, though? Like, I don't want to change it. I don't want to generate something that has nothing to do with me. How can I actually use these tools? And how are these tools going to change change the music industry? Not quite knowing at the time the scale of how significant that was going to be. So I was experimenting with all the tools I showed you earlier, but I came across this tool called Prism Sample RNN, which is based on a sample RNN model, but made by some researchers at the Royal National College of Music. Here's a lovely picture of it here, which is just over the road from the university that I work at. They sort of bringing music and technology together, and had a software designer there that came up with this system, and they were all working with this. So I had a friend at the time who had experimented with this and was able, she's a great sound artist, she's called Vicky Clark, she's based in Manchester as well, and she was able to kind of talk me through the process to show me what a Colab notebook is, because I'd never seen one before. And if you haven't seen one of those before, it's basically an interface between you and a wall of Python, and you can just run, there's like lots of these cells that do each stage of the process for you. So if you have an error at any point, you can kind of stop there and rectify that. There's loads and loads of these on like GitHub. It's a really great way to test tools out and get people experimenting with them. But so this model, basically this works with raw audio. You can put your own sound files in there, and it will analyze these files and then give you samples back, unusual samples based on the data set that you fed it. This was designed by, it's designed by Christopher Meelan, who's on here. He's the software guy, but also an artist called Sam Salem, or a composer who was doing a lot of field recordings and wanted something that worked a bit faster than sample RNN. So I started to experiment with this. I tried using Rave at the time. It was too difficult for me. And this just felt like a really comfortable ground of like, bit complicated, but also interesting results coming out. And it really, again, at the time, a lot of stuff that Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst were talking about, and my friend Vicky, was this relationship that this type of method has with musique concrète. So having like these strange sounds, these concrete sounds that we can use to compose with, rather than musical, an instrument, a melody, a voice. So I started making these data sets of around half an hour. I tried working with guitar and synthesizers, but really the results I was getting were just kind of the same sort of sounds, but a variation, maybe in rhythm or melody. So this is when I started to really work with my voice. And I recorded all different data sets. One of them was conversational. And I was telling stories of things that had happened to me. It was in lockdown, so it was good to get it off your chest. But this is like a conversational data set. This was the sort of results I'd get from that. Sort of muttering there. So I tried something a bit more exciting, which I called a vocal derive, which was me sort of freestyling vocals for half an hour, trying to get as much range as I could in there. Different sort of mouth shapes, spoken, sang, percussive. And this was the result. So a bit more melodic and quite weird. The first time I heard that, I got like a chill run down my spine. So some melody, but it kind of kept getting stuck on these few notes that I must go to naturally. I made a short composition out of some of these sounds, which very, very experimental for me, and included them in a conference in sort of this quadraphonic setup. I was approached by a colleague who is a games artist who wanted to make some visuals for it, basically. So when I was presenting this, I'd kind of kept getting these visual ideas of like an ancient being that was doing a polyphonic chant or a polyphonic kind of prayer. I don't know where it came from, but it came. And I sort of was thinking of Cthulhu, if anyone reads Lovecraft, this sort of ancient god, older than the earth itself. So there was a lot of these, like, I had some visual ideas of what I felt it sounded like, but I'm going to just show you like the composition and the video. Come in. Okay, so this was the. Thanks. So thank you. This was the first track, I guess, that I'd made from these outputs. It's very, very experimental for me and the style that I'm used to working with. But what was really important to me was this, that I was doing it ethically, and it was the control I had as an artist. So being able to work with this notebook that was on my, it was just all based on my computer. I had my data set, it was my voice, I owned it, it wasn't stealing anything from anyone. And then, the outputs were limited, but that was what I found really exciting about it. And having to sort of work within the confines of that, and that became kind of what the project became. It's like, okay, so how do I control the data set now that I can make it, that I can get more and more better sounds out of it, and I can make more complicated compositions from these samples. So what I then did next is I took a mixed vocal data set, because I was getting really limited responses from mine, no matter what I did, and it's probably my accent and the way that I sing. But I basically made these mixed vocal data sets. So me and two of the other members of my band, because we're already sort of in a partnership, and started to create it. But I got some really interesting results from that, basically. Way more melody, some percussive sounds as well. I'll play you some of the melodic ones. Getting some microtonal warbles in there. And just little things, you start to be able to hear, like, I could hear that as like an accent in a, in a dance track, or, there's like unique percussive sounds that I can now start bringing into compositions. So I'm just going to play you another video now, which is basically like the last piece of music I made. I should also mention that Adam, who did my colleague Adam, who did the visuals for this, was doing his own experiments into AI visuals at the time. And so the first piece you've seen there is the first thing he did, and it was when this was all the things that he did were made within a year of each other, and the way the technology changed in that year is crazy. So I think it really acts as a document to the technology of the time. And it's really fascinating. These are just clips from all the different. There's 7 tracks. These are clips from all the different videos, all generated. But yeah, I'll play you. I did it for general release, so you can listen to it on Spotify if you'd like. But I'll just play you this final video here, which was done at the end of the project, and it's a bit more pop. Thanks. So yeah, I hope that one sounds more musical than the first one you heard. But there's things I was having to do. I've only used generated samples from the Prism sample RNN, but as it was all sort of female vocals, I have had to repitch things because everything was just sitting in the same range. But yeah, it is, and I'm sure you can see the quality, the resolution of the imagery as well. Something really positive that came out of this was like this whole story world that now exists for patients, the character of patients, the surrounding characters, and as a creative is not what I expected to get out of doing this project. I thought it would be purely musical, but that has been the most exciting bit actually. And in a couple of weeks, so I have done some performances of this, but it's been sort of straightforward electronic music. But in a couple of weeks, I will be doing a performance at a festival, which is partly this, and then a bit of new music with live vocalists and outfits and visuals, and it's really taken on like its own life. I don't have to work within the restrictions of just using these samples. I've just integrated them into how it would normally work. So I try and have at least one in each new track that I write that's from those samples. But yeah, it's been quite freeing actually. And I also, so just a quick mood board of the sort of visual things I'll be doing in the future. And the most recent thing, this is the last thing I'll talk about. The most recent thing I've been working on is what I call the Oracle. It's part of this storyline. It's this spherical object here, and it's an instrument that uses Arduino, Max MSP, and Ableton. So I use the samples that I've generated as the sound, as the instrument, and then there's an accelerometer inside this ball that affects the pitch. This is one of the first trials with it, but I'll just play this short video. So it's taking like the XYZ data. So it's just affecting actually pitch and duration of when the note is triggered. And so if I point it downwards, it's a low note. I wanted it to be, if someone else is using it, it feels quite intuitive, and that did to me. It's very, very early stages, and it's very volatile, so you have to be careful, so you don't have any ear-busting sounds. But yeah, so the idea is now to make wireless versions of these that people can interact with, and not just control like samples of my voice, but any instrument, really. Yeah, this is the Patience series. I think I said at the beginning, I tried to celebrate each step of the way and each time I shared the work. So it started off with literally like DJ sets, so I was trying to use Max in a live environment to do performance. And now it's like full stage productions. The visuals came in sort of halfway through. And I hope there'll be many, many more. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to ask about your tracks and how you used the AI-generated audio sounds in your tracks. And you said that you manipulated them a little bit, like changing the pitch so that it doesn't sound monotonous. And I was wondering, how much do you allow yourself to change those files so that it still remains like AI? Or
so really minimally. So, and I think that you can hear that in the quality of the samples because they're still quite low resolution. But the only manipulation I did was pitch, which I had to use in each one, and then I feel like the very first one there is an effect to make one of the tracks sound more percussive because I only had a very limited range of sounds. And I had got this strange strange sample that had come out that was kind of like, and I was like, oh, that could be a drum. So I kind of tried to overdrive it a bit, to give it a percussive feel. But that's the first one I made, and then after that is when I started to work with the other data sets to try and just generate those sounds naturally. So the sounds, there was quite like a low bass sound in the last track I played. That is like a percussive sound that I've just pitched as far down as so it's still in sync with the track, but to try and it was a lot of hours lost to the process, and it was not the easiest way to do it. But I kind of, once I'd set myself that limit of because I feel like it's kind of pointless otherwise, really. You need to be able to, what I wanted you to do is when you hear it, even though it's not always comfortable to listen to, is you hear the aesthetic of that model. Because personally, I feel like that is, it's like a capsule in time of where the technology was and what we created as a human race. Is this bizarre technology that was able to do that, which now it's not the best technology, but there's a lot of people that are already talking about like AI nostalgia, and this nostalgia for the heyday or this exciting time with AI technology where you would get these really unusual results, anomalous results, I believe the scientific community call them, that it's maybe not what you're aiming for, but it seems to be what the artists who are working with them were more drawn to, is the unusual things that came out of it. So long story short, very little, and it was mostly just the pitch, and I tried to build the sounds around what I wanted from the data set.
Would you I don't know how to phrase it, but would you manipulate them in a way so that it becomes a melody that you want to hear, or would you just preserve the melodies of the tracks?
I would love it if it was producing melodies that we all want to hear.
You can change like pitch here and there so that it becomes.
I wouldn't
have
changed bits of the pitch. I would change the whole thing. So it was generating mostly samples that were, say, 30 seconds long. And then I'd literally sit and go through them all and be like, oh, that's an interesting idea. And then I'd create like the sub-clips. So I guess there's a manipulation there in me selecting the phrases. But I wouldn't be like, oh, if only that, the third note there was a bit higher. It wasn't like that. It's all just audio. And it was more... I would create like drum racks and then have those percussive sounds in there so I could play them like a drum machine. But with the more vocal sounds or the bass sounds or little melodic sounds, often I was just working very short samples. There is a bit of the Elf Tech one in there in the album, so it sort of sounds more like a woman singing, but it's a sample that was generated that I then ran through Elf Tech but it's a bit of a warbling, but it's quite melodic, so I thought it might sound